So today I will talk a little bit about how to study. Alright, okay, so obviously when it comes to studying, time management is very important. Now there are several layers on the aspect of time. So the first aspect will be we talk about the macroscopic level of things. So let's start it out by examining the how will the exam timetable be. So for example, normally we have our exam week. Let's say my exam week will probably look something like on Monday I will have a psychology exam, and on Tuesday I will probably have biology exam, and then on Thursday I will have chemistry exam, and then on, let's say, okay, on Thursday I will also have my math exam. So that will be my exam week. Now, looking at that, I will try to think how I should arrange my revision period. So, for example, I feel like psychology, I'm quite okay, so I put a tick. Biology, I feel like a lot of topics I really need a lot of revision on. So right now, a lot of knowledge is very sketchy and shaky in my head. So I will put 2 crosses up there. And chemistry, I feel like it's like a mixed bag. So the calculation part, the moles and stuff, I'm pretty good at it. But inorganic, I haven't really done a lot of exercises on them. So probably something like that. And math, I mean, math has always been my strongest point, so I put 2 ticks on it. So here it gives you an idea on how good or how not good you are in terms of the subjects. So you will try to think how much time you should put on each subject. So for example, I will definitely put more time into biology. How much time though? That's the question. For me, normally I spend around 2 weeks of time studying everything all together. So let's say I will begin my revision 2 weeks prior to the exam. Now, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I will try to make sure I have most time allocated to this biology. So I will probably study biology first, and then I will study chemistry. And then I will probably study psychology, and then maybe a little bit of maths. So 2 weeks worth of time, I have 14 days, for example. Now I should probably spend a good 8 to 10 days on this stuff. And chemistry, probably 6 to 8. And psychology, maybe a good 5. And maths, probably 2 to 3. So that would be my rough estimate when I have the final confirmed sheet on the exam week, like what day it is, and then what time slot it would be, I will make sure this thing is much more detailed. So I have a good idea on which day I should study which subject. So that's the general time management I will have when I'm trying to inspect the subjects I have in the examination week. So moving on, I would say probably the most important part, the second most important part of the entire studying process is to make good notes. So when it comes to making notes, I will have three main types of notes. So the first one will be the revision scribble, as you can see here. And then the second one will be exam style questions. Let's say is ESQ. Alright, so repetition scribble. I will talk more on that later. But basically, repetition scribble is a note where you can just forget about all the organization, aesthetics. You can just repetitively write on something that you feel like is always decaying in your mind. Like you're trying so hard to recall it, but every time you try to answer some questions, it just falls into the gap in your knowledge, right? Okay, so let's begin with revision scribble. So I have here, for example, let's take biology, for example. I will open this note, revision scribble, and then as you can see here, I have written already quite a lot of it. Now, one of the most recurring features you will ever see in my note is I keep my color coding very minimal. I only have three colors: red, blue, and black. Now, I use blue to tell myself what kind of topics I am going through. So I put that on my left hand side. And then I use my black pen to write out the content. And then I use very sparingly on my red pen and my highlighter. The reason is I do not want to spam my attention allocation. What I mean by that is in a book, throughout the textbook, throughout the content you see in biology, there is no way that upon the first glance you will know which information is important and which is not. You will only acquire that information after doing a certain amount of exercises. So, I see a lot of classmates, I see a lot of people, they have this notebook, right? A physical one. They keep writing throughout the class, or maybe in their houses, like when they're studying on their desks. The thing is, they are trying to use a lot of colors, and then they're trying so very hard to draw very beautifully on some random diagrams that they will probably not even look at in 2 weeks' time. Well, speaking of doing something that is completely useless, I see people taking pictures on teachers' PowerPoint slides or something. Well, to me, it kind of feels like you're going to a concert and then you're taking out your phone and then you are recording, I don't even know, like Post Malone singing in a concert. I mean, yes, I get that. you're kind of in a situation where you feel like you might want to look at that something in a later time. But trust me, you probably won't. You probably won't. Like all these different PowerPoints, PDFs, Word documents sitting in your phone album, in your camera roll, you probably won't look at them. You probably will forget about their existence the next morning you wake up. That's just my personal opinion. I think it is very important to make sure everything in your notes are equally important. The tiny bits and pieces that you feel like is extremely important, only then you should use your highlighter and write on it. Alright? So that's my philosophy in taking notes. So as I go on, I will finally arrive to the point where I am currently studying. So to make this video more authentic, I will do things in real time. So for example, I will continue on revising continue with my current revision. So for example, right now I am at the gas exchange found in Hillman. So I will put my window here and then I put my other window here. So now I have a split window. Now I am looking at how the human ribcage move in terms of inspiration and expiration. So I will take a read first. Okay, so I will write during the inspiration. There are two things that will contract. External intercostal muscle. Right? And then the diaphragm will also contract. Now, this will make our rib cage enlarge, and if our rib cage enlarge, the volume will increase, and then the pressure will decrease, and then the air moves in. As simple as that. Down a pressure gradient. And then inspiration is an active process. I will write that, active process, which requires energy. I will say requires energy. Now for the expiration, The external intercostal and diaphragm muscles relax. Rib cage moves downward and then diaphragm curves upward. Volume decreases, causing air pressure increase. Passive. Well, I'm not sure if I have enough spaces for this, but I'll try. So, expiration, normally. The volume decreases. The pressure increases, and then the air goes out. And then normally it's passive, so there is no okay, how can I represent this? No energy required. So I will probably write something like that. No energy. Oh my god, what am I doing? No. Okay. But if it is forceful, the internal intercostal muscle will contract, right? Yeah. So the internal intercostal will contract. While external intercostal muscle relaxes. And then together we call this antagonistic. Okay, I don't have enough space for this. Antagonistic, which means opposing. Fairly straightforward, I would say. So, as you can see, there's no magic in making notes. For me, I always make sure I read through the text. I form a mental picture of what's going on. And then I will write out something to help me remember through muscle memory. And that's it. I will only do this once. I probably will not go over that again, ever. Well, maybe in a later time when I feel like everything I've pretty much forgotten. Otherwise, this entire note-taking process, the revision scribble, I do it only once. I repeat, I only do it once, because if you do it twice, if you do it 3 times, it's most likely a waste of time, because you're overloading your brain with too much information that you're not sure whether it's important or not. Then your brain will only selectively retain the information that you thought was important or you feel most comfortable with, instead of the really essential tiny bits and pieces that can get you the extra marks in the examination. So, without further ado, I will move on to the second part, which I feel like is the, what's the word for it? The thing that will make or break your examination performance. We will go over to the exam style questions. So for me, I have, so for example, in my notes, in my folder, biology folder, you will find different notes, and I have this exam style questions notebook, and you can see here I use the same philosophy for my color coding. I will start out my chapters by using a blue pen to tell me what kind of where I am right now, and then I answer my questions in black. And then if I'm right, if I answered something correctly, I either just leave it blank, or I put a tick with my red pen right next to it. But more often than not, I will make an error or I left out something. So I will self-correct with my red pen, writing something down right next to it. And I cannot stress enough how important this process is, because this is the very opportunity for you to first actively recall something. That's the first. And second, your opportunity to experience the failure to recall something. That is very important, because realizing that you have that gap in knowledge is a giant step closer to solving that failure. Like you're bridging the gaps in your knowledge, so to speak. So as you can see, I only use my highlighters sparingly. Antibodies contain 2 binding sites which help with agglutination. Okay, so the wrong answers I correct it and then I write down the correct answer with red pen. And then if I feel like there are some conceptual things that I really need to pay attention to, again, I will use my blue pen to write out something. For example, antibodies bind to pathogens, not antigens. Antibodies bind to pathogens, not antigens. And the antibodies contain 2 binding sites which help with agglutination. Right. So I will go on, and as you can see, in most of my exercises, I actually have a lot of questions answered wrongly. I use my red pen a lot. Okay, so for example, right now, for example, let's say I already finished my first ever revision on water, ATP, and inorganic ions. Now I want to test out. To be honest, it's not like I want to. I have to test out what I know and what I don't know. So I have my subscription on this website, Save My Exams. So I will go over to the chapter ATP water blah blah blah. I go over there, and then I have 3 tabs. So easy, medium, hard. Usually for my examination needs, I only do the hard part, and then basically you guys saw what I did. But today, for the sake of this video, I will do the medium part. medium difficulty. So again, I will start things out by writing out where I am right now. So 1.6 ATP, H2O, and then inorganic ions. Probably something like that. Plus or minus. That means ions. One thing I think pretty recurring in the theme of my notes taking is I always try to simplify things and to use my own personal coding system. Now, I do not have a protocol for each of the coding that I think I will use, but the general rule of thumb is always try to not write out the entire word or vocabulary out. Like, it's just stupid. Like, always make sure if you can abbreviate something or if you can replace something with just a simple symbol, do it, because it helps your brain in two ways. So the first way is you are compressing the information, and the second way is you're training your brain to decompress information. So in the future, for example, when you are doing some examination questions, your brain will be much more accustomed to decompressing all your stored information in your head, and then you can translate all these different compressed information into a complete sentence. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So, question 1A. Water plays a very important role. Okay. Upon first glance, I feel like I know this question, but thinking more deeply, I will admit that I have a lot of difficulty trying to translate what I know into what I can write. Okay, so only two properties. This question is not being very harsh to me. So the first property, I remember it. For example, it can be good solvent. For substances. Because okay, no. Because okay, I will space things out. H2O are polar molecules. Then what? H2O are polar molecules, and then the polar bonds can The slightly positive hydrogen ions. Is it? Not ions, hydrogen atoms. At slightly negative oxygen atoms can surround charged substances. Which means the substance can solve well. I'm not sure. That's my first try on the. Also, by the way, I feel like answering questions in point forms really helps both yourself to make sure what you're writing is of importance, and it helps the examiner to, how can I say, if you write it out in a very clustered paragraph, there's a higher chance for you to lose marks because the examiner just can't be asked to read through all of it. The second property cytoplasm. So important part of the cytoplasm of cells. So I probably want to revolve my thinking around a cell, cytoplasm. What else? Okay. Okay. I would say it's a very important metabolite for chemical reactions. For example, is responsible for many condensation. Wait, is it? Hydrolysis reaction in, for example, ATP hydrolysis and polynucleotide formation. Probably bullshit. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Okay, let's see how did I do. So properties of water that make it important for this the blah blah is a polar molecule. Polar molecule. Alright, okay. It acts as a universal solvent. What? Okay. Okay, okay. Right. What is a universal solvent? Important for reactions that helps reactions to occur faster in solution. Okay. Water molecules are reactive, allowing hydrolysis reactions, condensation reactions to occur. I'm probably correct. Okay, so these are probably just fancy stuff that will get me no mark whatsoever. What I missed out is probably that. H2O acts as a universal solvent. And I missed out that water are reactive. Okay, so that's how I tackle the my knowledge gap, and I feel like it's not just knowledge gap, but it's like sometimes you feel like you remember most of the stuff in textbook. What I see in most students and most of my classmates is they know all this stuff, but they have difficulty applying what they know into what they can answer. Like what I suffered just now. It's never easy for me to apply what I know. That's why I need a lot of practice. And another very important thing I think is sometimes the marking scheme contains answer that is quite bizarre and mind-bending and unexpected and surprising. It's not your fault. It's not your fault to not be able to answer 100% of the marking scheme. But I think part of the game is to make sure you can answer at least somewhat close to what the marking scheme requires. So it is again very important to trick your brain into remembering the important bits and pieces you should remember to get you the marks in the examination. So the final part of the puzzle is having a notebook called repetition scribble. If I go over to my biology folder again, I have in here an empty repetition scribble. So for example, what should I do? I want to remember that I want to remember my knowledge gap better. So here's what I'm going to do. I will repeatedly state that H2O acts as a I want more space. Universal solvent. Okay, I will begin with H2O molecules are polar. So they act as universal solvent. And then I also want to add that, okay, so on the other hand, H2O are reactive. And so it helps with hydrolysis and condensation. Now I will repeat writing that. Probably twice, probably triple that. The important part is I have adequate muscle memory on that. Now I don't have to worry too much about the layout, the arrangement, the aesthetics of my notes. What I just want to make sure is I am doing what I need to do to reinforce my knowledge. Because, for example, for a person studying from mild OCD like me, if I create a notebook and then I always have this kind of subconscious intention to make my notebook as neat, as clean, as organized as possible. What the problem is that there are some important bits that I actually need a lot of repetition on. I can't write it out in my notebook because I feel like that would destroy the aesthetics. That would make it seem more disorganized. And that is actually stupid because your note is supposed to be where you can remember things properly. So my solution to that is to have one notebook where you can just forget about all these aesthetical things. You can just do blah 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 blah, and then I don't care. Actually, I care. I can't take this. But either way, you get what I'm saying. Like make sure you have what you need in your notes. Make sure you have plenty of practice. Make sure you have plenty opportunities to locate your gap in knowledge. Make sure you have your personalized need for your studying practices. That's the end of my video. I hope you found something useful in your study. Oh my god, my alarms. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one.